Yeah.
There it is. All right. Well, now that we're recording, maybe we'll give you all one more time to the monthly call. We're about to get started here and share a lot of great things about the current state of the roadmap, as well as we're going to talk about GA4 topics and ask some questions about managing events, being if you're using like the built-in Drupal functionality or Facebook events. So yeah, we have all that happening. So let me just turn the floor over to I don't know, Tom. Do you want to start with a couple of words before we hand it over to Kylie?
Kylie, I
Sure.
think you're in the wrong deck.
I will. I'm happy to. In fact, I have something that I think is very relevant to say. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to visit the Y of the North, and for those of you who may not know it, the Y of the North is a big part of our history as a community, and it's you can't not go to the Y of the North and connect with the team there, and not just feel the spirit of innovation and just how well they embrace technology for the sake of improving member engagement and the member experience. So this team today, Avi, Kylie, Tom, YUSA, the core team, Andre, the whole group, we're the stewards today, but we're the ones who work very hard to take the early work and the development of this community and even the more recent work. You may not be aware that it was the Y of the North that donated the first form of Layout Builder to the code base that we built on. So yeah, had a great visit there, talked about some of the work they're doing today with virtual. I couldn't help but reflect on how important their early work in building this code base and setting us up here has made a big difference. And I thought I'd share that with you because our history, and our vision for the future to seriously and effectively manage the continuous growth of this code base in this community is just very important. So I'm inspired. It was a great visit, and I hope you feel it too. Back to you, Tom.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. And actually, I'm just going to turn it right over to Kylie.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, depending on what time zone or part of the world you're in. So today's agenda, we're going to go over the upcoming releases. We've got a point release coming really soon, so I want to talk to you guys about that. We have a presentation by a gentleman named Richard Nosek, who is an SEO and digital strategy expert, who is going to take us through some of the most commonly found issues with GA4 and a lot of the questions he's getting and working with a lot of UI clients, so getting that done. We have a series of poll questions, and this is important for us to bring to you. Shelley's going to give you a little bit more context about it, but we are looking to do some major integrations with Facebook's and events and the event module together, and we need to know how you guys are using them. So that's going to come. Tom will trigger those a little bit later, and then just a couple of reminders and questions. I wanted to say before we get started, just a reminder, I will monitor the chat throughout, so feel free to post your questions in there if you're a little bit nervous and don't want to just raise your hand right away and speak. But thank you so much. Let's see if we can get this through. Okay, so upcoming release on Halloween. Didn't plan it that way, we sort of planned it that way, but we didn't plan it to be Halloween. We are going to be releasing a whole new sandbox environment. Why this is important is we've been talking a little bit about how marketing and communications over at YUSA has been supporting us with creating some demo content for you guys. It will include 15 pages. This is the list of the pages that you're going to get with full content in it, which you are able to use should you adopt this platform, as well as images and iconography, statistics. It's a fully built out site, and that'll be coming over to you. Some of the lower pages will have a little bit of lorem ipsum in it, but by and large, it is mostly actual content that you can use, and we are excited to show that to you. So we'll get that ready for you, and we'll be able to demo that set of pages in our November call, and you guys can take a look at it, and then we'll give you access to the sandbox environment as well at that time, and you can go in and play and build. The benefit of our sandbox environment is it rewrites every 2 hours, so you can't make a mistake. You can go in, you can build, and then 2 hours later we'll delete it. So there's no harm, no foul. It's a great way to sort of test and try. So that is coming soon, and we're very excited to show that to you. In December, so for those of you who are looking at making your upgrades, we've got the program and program subcategory content type coming your way, as well as membership builder and some little bits of UX improvements, nothing major on that side. Our Canadian wise, we're very excited to be announcing that their Canadian colorway with the brand new Shine On branding will be coming, which they released just in September or August, if I remember correctly. There's a little bit of security updates for Drupal 10 to going to 10.1, and a Drush version 12 and a Vue.js updates for the technological people on that call. It's all back end and security. It is important, but just please make sure you're on 10 before the end of the year. We are working on a new promotion content type that has been very supportive by the team over at Brandywine to kind of come up and configure this. So we're very excited to get that shown to you and get that out the door. And we just want to send a thank you to the Brandywine team for helping us work through that. Advanced filtering updates for Activity Finder, and then weekly schedule managers coming this way. For March, we're working on getting some iconography for Layout Builder into the components put in. So there'll be a library of icons available to you to use. That will be coming from YMCA as they get it done. And we're very excited to see that. As we said at the top of the call, we're going to be talking a lot about questions and poll questions at the end of the call with regards to events and the event content type. It's so that we can figure out how to deal with the recurring event handling, multi-day events, multi-location events, and most importantly, to a lot of you who've told us in our roadmap board, Facebook event integration, making your lives a little bit easier. Working on the small Y template for those Ys that have maybe 1 or 2 branches or single family Y. The Y360 schedules integration, the search API for Layout Builder. Don't worry, I had to ask what this meant too. It means how the Layout Builder pages are indexed by the internal search to make sure that that is fully optimized. And then 2-factor authentication for the admins to make sure that your security requirements are met. And then finally, moving into June of 2024, these are the ideas we're starting to work on. They are subject to change at this point, but donations, financial scholarship calculator, membership calculator, and volunteerism. So moving that along the way. If you have any interesting ideas that you'd like to submit to us, please let us know through the community board, which is linked here. We'll also go through this again at the end of the call. So that's what's coming down the pipe. Now on to far more interesting people. I'm just going to switch the screen share at this moment and introduce you to Richard Nosek. As I said at the top of the call, Richard is an SEO and digital expert. He has been working with one of the core team vendors for many, many years and has been supporting YMCAs through that. The transition from Universal Analytics to GA4. So he's going to come and share his knowledge. We've noticed we're getting a lot of questions in the Slack channel on the GA4 since it's sort of transitioned over, and we're hoping that he can help us all better understand what we're doing. So Richard, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kylie. And thank you to the website services team and everybody that's on the call today. So yeah, working with the community, I'm quite often being asked about Google Analytics 4, and back in the day, would have been helping to set that up using Google Tag Manager and just even setting up the new Google Analytics 4 properties. And there's still quite a bit, even though we're sort of well into Google Analytics 4 being the Google Analytics platform that is recording data on your website, still getting a lot of people asking about it. It's still very new for people. So I thought I'd take 10 minutes or so, just this quick little introduction to Google Analytics 4, cover off on a couple things that I think are quite common. And then there will be a poll question about where we might dive in next, because this is a big swimming pool with Google Analytics. So without further ado, so Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4, the new platform that is being used. So I don't think that this is new for anyone on the call, but website analytics really matter, and having that data can really help. So it's important that we're tracking it and in some fashion. It's going to help us make some decisions that are based on data. And for the community that I work with, this is often around the different ways that they're driving traffic to the website, so that digital marketing. And so this is really a key thing, is that we want to make sure we're tracking this. The other thing is that this data can help with development as well. So we can see things about the performance of our website and start to track and monitor that. Google Analytics has been around for a while. It existed well before I started my career in the world of the web. So in the beginning, it was Urchin, and there might be some people on the call that will recognize that name, or that will ring a bell. That was sort of Google's first website tracking platform, if you will. But then it evolved from there. And in 2007, they rolled out the classic version of Google Analytics, snippet of code that tracked all kinds of things on your website. It fired when your website page was called up and people were looking at it. So it was a hit-based kind of a model. Then a little bit later on in 2012, they rolled out sort of the next version of Google Analytics called Universal Analytics. And then, of course, we flash forward to today. And as of July 1 of 2023, Google Analytics 4 was the official platform for tracking data, website data. There are still community members I work with that have gone into their analytics. I've looked at Universal Analytics and I've seen that that they're still tracking data. The last one that I looked at was stopped tracking data in earlier September. So you still might have some data in the old Universal Analytics. Google Analytics team announced that it was a rolling sort of shutdown of the servers. They weren't just going to flick the switch and all of the servers that had Universal Analytics on it would stop recording. But I want to take just a pause there, because often community members are asking me, what do I do with the Universal Analytics? Because Google has said that they're going to delete those servers or delete that data. And we talk about that often. And in some cases, I've worked with community members that are moving their data out of the analytics server, and they're going to put it into something like BigQuery, which is a Google data warehouse. One of the YMCAs that I work with in the community use Snowflake, which is a data lake. And then, so that's maybe at the higher end of the data volumes. And then sort of down the line to where there might be less data, smaller community members. It can be as simple as going into your Universal Analytics account, going to the report that you would have used regularly, say the reports you use to look at page views, or the reports you use to look at the acquisition channels, or our Google Ads, Google Grant kind of reports. You set your date range for the date range that you want to collect, and then you can export that as a CSV file. Once you have that file, you have the data, and you can do something with that at some point in the future. If you decide that you want to go down the path of putting it into a data lake or a data warehouse, or you want to use it in some fashion in visualization, like a Looker Studio report or Tableau. So the note is, think about that, because you will have at least until the end of this year. That was sort of the last time I saw a Google tweet. They were going to keep these servers accessible, so you can log in. They're not going to record data, but you can log into your Universal Analytics account and you can see your historic data. And so you may or may not be using that actively, but it is a recommendation to the members in the community that they go in and back that data up to some fashion. And a good way to do it is you could just look at a calendar year or a fiscal year, and just sort of export those reports. You don't have to export every single report that's in Universal Analytics. I think you could do just the reports that are important to you. And then, like I said, again, you might go with a little bit more of an advanced approach to capturing that data and integrate it with a warehouse, and that's a different conversation. So GA4 is, the more I've been working with the community, and the more I've been working with other analytics accounts, it's very similar. A lot of the same stuff is being tracked. For example, audience segmentation and cross-platform tracking, very similar to what you would have experienced in Universal Analytics. There might be some differences in how it gets configured or how it would be set up in the back end of Google. But a couple of the ones that are quite commonly that I'm working with on the community, which I think are worth looking at, is the event tracking. So GA4 is an event-based data model, so it's tracking user interactions. Page view is considered a user interaction. In Universal Analytics, it would have been considered like a hit. And so this opens up, I think this has opened up a lot of great opportunities for the community to look at their website and to see how people are interacting, not just on like what pages did they view, but what elements on the website that they interact with. And then of course, this can all be configured and sort of customized for what you want to track. The other thing that I think is important to look at is that the enhanced reporting. So Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, you could create dashboards. You can do something very similar in GA4. GA4 now also allows you to go in and create to change the user interface of the Google Analytics platform. Actually, and I'll show you some screenshots and we'll talk about that just shortly. In this slide, in fact. So we're going to navigate. I've got some screenshots. I'll sort of show you, because one of the things I found, depending on the people I'm working with in the community, I get a comment. This is one common thing, is that people will say, I've logged into GA4. I've looked at it. I'm just not sure how to move around it. I don't see what I'm looking for. And so the user interface is a little bit different. So we'll just take a look at that a little bit. I'll give it a little bit of a high level introduction to that. One thing that I would like to be positive and encourage the community about is that I've been at this for quite some time now, and I'm at a place where I feel comfortable with Google Analytics 4. I feel that it is a better platform. It's a move in the right direction, being an event-based paradigm. I think I'm familiar enough with it now. So for those of you that are still not quite sure about this new platform, I encourage you just to keep with it and to get familiar with it, because once you do, then some of you may have been around long enough to know what it was like to switch from other Google Analytics or other analytics platforms, and how there's that change in the user interface. I just want to point out the demo dashboard. So I'll be real quick with this. I want to be mindful of the time that I have. And Kylie, please feel free to shout out when I start to talk a little bit too much and my time is running out, because this is a topic I could spend a lot of time in.
Sure.
The demo dashboard, if you log into your Google Analytics account, and then you go over to this menu where you can look at the account and the property. If you search on demo, you will find Google Analytics demo account, and it's a really good way just to go and look around and just play around with it and become a little bit more familiar with it. And so I just wanted to point that out, that you can look at the flooded, you can look at the merchant account, and it'll give you some sense of what the user interface looks like. And no fear then of doing something wrong, deleting a card or changing an aspect of your organization's analytics. So when you first log in, you're going to be taken to the home screen, which is going to be just a series of data cards. And it's going to show you some of the stuff that you would be familiar with. I mean, even this card here is sort of a familiar card from Universal Analytics. And it'll give you a sense of, at a high level, the number of users. It gives you some sort of up to real-time kind of reporting in terms of the users. And of course, you can dig deeper into each of these and go and view the full report by just clicking on view real-time, view all insights, etc. So the snapshot is just a little bit of a deeper dive into what's on the home screen. It will give you some information about some of the stuff that we talked about just now. I think these are good ones to look at if you were just wanting to take a look, if you were just sort of like how many users are using the website, and you were just kind of doing a quick analysis, maybe wanted to look at some revenue. Where you're probably going to spend more of your time is over here in this left-hand side menu. These are officially called collections. So there's a lifecycle collection, user collection. I want to take a look at one of them a little bit, because this is one that I think I'm asked about quite often, is how is traffic coming to the website? And there's a little bit of a difference that I think is worth pointing out, because I'm asked this question quite a bit, sort of like, what's the difference between user and what's the difference between traffic acquisition? So traffic acquisition is probably the report that you want to look at by default. Traffic acquisition is specifically going to show you, and I'm going to read from Google, it specifically shows you where new and returning users are coming from. The user acquisition report, that's just going to show you where new users are coming from. And if you're doing a deeper analysis of your website and you're wanting to look at things like which channels are bringing you new users or which campaign, you might then obviously look at the user. But I think at a high level, you could start with traffic. And this is a common question I am asked is, well, where do I start? Where do I look? What am I looking at? And if we used sort of a model of the ABC, if you've heard of that before in the marketing world, acquisition, so where people are coming from, behavior, what are they doing on the website, and then C being what conversions are they taking. So this is probably a good place to start by looking at what channels are driving me the most traffic. Is it direct? Is it organic search? Is there a paid campaign or a platform that I'm using like Google Grant that's driving traffic? And then I think the next report that is quite often asked about is they want to see what content. So the community is curious, like what's my most viewed page? What's the most important page? And then the communities I work with, you'll see a lot of it is, of course, then around locations and maybe some of the platforms, but this is also a good report to look at. An important part to understand about Google Analytics 4 is that you can use it for multiple streams of data. You will create a data stream that is going to be just for your website, but you can also create them if you're using an app, or you might create them if you have sort of a secondary website that you have some other activity on you want to track separately. And you'll do these under what are called data streams now. And then the last thing I wanted to just call out attention to, because again, this is one of the things that the community asks about and I think is often even overlooked. If you've set up your Google Analytics 4 property, you may not have looked at the data settings or looked at the data retention. It defaults to 2 months. And you really want to configure it to, you have two choices. It's 2 months or 14 months. And what this is really talking about is how long Google Analytics 4 keeps your user and event level data stored on their analytics servers before they delete it. And so in the beginning, even when I was setting up these properties for clients over a year ago, I wasn't aware of this until I came across and read about it. And so I went back in and set this up. So I would encourage everybody on the call to go and look at the Google Analytics 4 account, go into the administration and look at the data retention settings and ensure that it's set to 14 months. And I'm going to try and wrap up in the next couple of minutes, kind of keep this short and sweet and save room for lots of questions. For both developers and marketers, there's some benefits to using website analytics and specifically in using Google Analytics 4. Because GA4 is event-based, and we're going to likely, I've been involved with developers and with the community quite often to create some events and track things that aren't kind of out of the box. So GA4 has got the ability to debug and track that. So it's good for developers. They can log in and they can go and see in the debug view of GA4 their interactions, and they can see if the parameters that they're looking for are being tracked. And so you would log into the admin and you go down to debug view. And then of course you're going to use Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager. But as you interact with the website, you'll start to see those events firing and any of the parameters that you were trying to capture with them. So it can be very beneficial for developers that are helping to support on the event tracking, Google Analytics side of things. And it does have capabilities similar to what UA would have had, Universal Analytics would have had with cross-domain tracking and cross-platform and cross-device. So there's some I think some really good opportunities to just look at the performance and the overall structure technically of the website, and Google Analytics can help with that. For marketers, for sure, I think the user experience of Google Analytics 4 is better once you get into it. You can set up and track the things that you want to track. Many of them will be tracked automatically now by default, kind of out of the box, like where in Universal Analytics in the old days, we would have had to create an event and add code to the website to track scrolling or to track file downloads. Now that stuff is by default. And then if there's any additional kind of tracking you want, setting up tracking using Google Tag Manager can be done. You don't necessarily have to go and tap on the corner of a developer's desk and get that help. And I think that from my experience so far with the community, tracking campaigns is much easier in GA4. And then, of course, something that I think is probably important for everyone is around data privacy, and Google Analytics has a really solid approach to data privacy and is fully compliant with regulations such as the GDPR. So this will be the conclusion of it for sure. I think that GA4 is a tool that can and should be used by both developers and marketers, and it can help you to develop and maintain your website. And it's definitely a good tool that can be leveraged to help grow your membership, to grow your business, if you will. And that's one of the areas where I've been working with the community as well, is just trying to figure out how can we measure this data so we can start to, validate what we're doing and prove the return on our investment. Yeah, I think that's everything. I'm just going to move into my poll question. I did want to have this poll question. I've talked to other groups like this, and it's similar where we have this high level kind of a flyover of the landscape, but maybe we want to drill down a little deeper into some other topics. And this is where I've been, some of the community, I recognize the name on the call. So I'm really happy that you're here today. And this is where I've been supporting in some of those instances. Where would you like to drill down or dive deeper next, if that was an opportunity that we could have?
And that should be popping up on your guys' screen right now in front of you. And while that's up there, there was a question from a gentleman named Travis. Will there be documentation or assistance for setting up event conversions for those with CRMs, for example, Traction Rec? We can write it. We can post it in the community poll. And if you guys tell us that's something that would be helpful, then that is definitely something we can do. Richard, can it be documented?
Yes.
Okay.
So I just will take one quick second. The difference with Universal Analytics is you created a conversion, and there were several different types of conversion. So the classic that probably most everybody on the call would be familiar with is somebody fills out a form and they go to that thank you page that says, thank you, we received your request. Somebody will be in touch with you in 24 hours. Or thank you, your purchase is processed. And there's this unique page that the user would go to. And so we could use that unique page path, create a conversion in Universal Analytics. It's a little bit different in GA4. In GA4, we don't have page hits. So we're going to create conversions off of events. And so what we need to do is figure out what event is it that we want to track specifically, set that up, however that might need to be done, and then we can turn it into a conversion. So short answer, yes, we can document that.
There's a note from Tony Van Dorsen that says, considering that we could do reports in UA dating back to 2007, 14 months feels like quite a drastic change in data retention. Do you think there's any chance that they'll compromise on that, or will that with enough pushback from communities?
It's entirely possible. I have seen the user interface and the functionality of GA4 change over the last couple of years. And some of those changes were in response to people saying, we need this, or what happened to this? So it's entirely possible. BigQuery is the data warehouse. And so for the community members that I've worked with that even have the biggest chunks of data and might query that data the most, the free tier, the starting point for BigQuery might be sufficient for most everyone. But it's entirely possible. I don't know. The only thing I don't know, actually, sorry, Tony, is that where you might go to reach out to the GA4 team to say, we want this. I don't know where that is. So maybe that's something I can find, Kylie, and we can share in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just grabbed
Yeah,
I was checking in the docs just as Tony asked that question. It looks like the 14 months only applies to user level data.
Yeah.
So stuff like aggregate reports and other event data is kept longer. So that might be a thing. And I would imagine, yeah, I mean, Richard, you can dig in more, but this might go back to GDPR or something like that too for the user level data.
Yeah, and there is, this might be a link that I could share into the chat. There's more to be learned about in regard to the data retention. And thanks, Avi. Yeah, definitely. It's going to be looking at user and event level data.
awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Richard. If there's more questions, we'll make sure that everybody gets answered to those as we go through it.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Everything on my screen disappeared very quickly.
Oh,
I
stopped sharing. I stopped sharing to transition over to.
Yep, no problem. Not a problem at all.
I was premature in that. I apologize.
No, it's all good. So cool. I'm just gonna bring it back up. So thank you so much for doing that. What we're going to do now is as we've said at the beginning, we have a bunch more questions. We have 7 in total. We want to thank you guys for helping us get through these. Shelley's going to give you a quick preamble, but they are all regarding events and Facebook events as we kind of go forward. So Shelley, do you want to give us a kind of a preamble of these questions that are about to be asked?
Sure, absolutely. So we've decided that we need to make some improvements to the event content type. And in doing so, we've seen some requests from the community for an integration, because a lot of folks are either managing their Facebook or Drupal, and there's not really any connection between the two. So people are having to do twice the work in order to have their Facebook events pulled into Drupal or vice versa. So we want, in order to kind of accomplish these updates to events, we wanted to kind of bring in this Facebook integration and see what it might be able to do for you. So Kylie, if we can pull up those poll questions. Essentially, this is based around how you manage events currently. Do you use Drupal? Do you use Facebook? And what kinds of improvements could we make between these connections? So the first question, very basic. Which tool do you currently use for your association to post events? Do you use your Drupal website, or do you use Facebook, or do you use something else? We'd like to know, because this will help us kind of understand where that starting point will be. For number 2, if you answered other in question number 1, what tool did you use? So we're just kind of interested if there's something else that you're using to help manage your events, maybe what that might look like in case there are other event integrations we can pull into. For the third question, we'd like to know if you answered for Drupal in question 1, do you find it easy to create and manage events in Drupal? For question 4, if you answered Facebook in question 1, do you find it easy to create and manage events in Facebook? I know a lot of folks are currently using Facebook. They have pretty robust event functionality. It's very easy for you to share events with people at your association. So I know a lot of folks are using Facebook for events. If you answered Facebook, how often do you post an event on Facebook? Do you do it rarely, sometimes, or often? And I would say often would be maybe more than once a week. Sometimes would be a couple times, maybe a month, and rarely might be, once every few months. For the next question, if you answered Facebook, is there a particular feature that you think is important in regarding Facebook? Because I know there's a lot of things that Facebook events does that maybe your Drupal website doesn't do. So if there's some things that you really like about Facebook and the way that it manages events, please let us know, because maybe we can kind of help bring some connection between what you're able to do in Facebook and then bring that into the Drupal website. do you think that it's important to have your Drupal website up to date with upcoming events? I know some folks use their Drupal website very often for their events, and some folks don't have any events at all really on their website. So are you actually using your website to manage events? And how important is that to you? And then finally, would you rather manage events on Drupal or on Facebook? I know if you're having problems maybe managing it on Drupal currently, maybe you might be just be looking to Facebook because it has more robust functionality. So which would you prefer? Would you prefer to have, if you had one place to do it, would you choose Drupal or would you choose Facebook?
Awesome.
And those are all the questions.
Thank you.
So thank you for your input.
Excellent. Well, you guys are answering all those questions that we put. It is important that you do these questions so it helps us make informed decisions while we're creating these integrations, and at least gives us a good solid starting point. Just a quick reminder of the product roadmap portal. Shelley, this is your baby.
Yeah. So a reminder again to submit your ideas for, if you have feature ideas, if you have things that are bothering you about your website, things, features you're just like, I don't know what this does. You can submit questions, you can submit improvement ideas and new feature requests. You can also check in and see what our upcoming roadmap is. On the top menu there, you'll see that there are tabs for in process, on deck, planning, under consideration, and new ideas. So feel free to poke around, submit comments on ideas. So if there is an idea in there that you're like, hey, this is really cool for my site, and I need it to do specifically this for my users. Those are the kind of information that we find really valuable, and it can help us make sure that we're building in the right features for you and your users. So please check it out and submit your ideas.
And just a last reminder before we let you go on this lovely day, community resources continue to be available to you. We have the docs. We can look at putting some GA4 documentation in there. We have the YouTube channel with the content admin pieces, and we have GitHub for any of our developers. We also got requested this morning, so I'm just going to raise it here, of a sandbox so that you can play. Again, that'll be available at the end of the month after Halloween, once we do that point release to release the demo content, so you guys can go in and play there. And that is it, unless there's any other questions or concerns. I think we're good for today. Thank you guys so much, as always, for joining us. Tom, Scarborough, do you want to take us up?
No, just, thanks from me as well. Thank you so much for being here, participating in the poll questions. It is extremely important that we get your feedback. And please tell your friends to join the call next month, because we'd love to get that number way above 57, maybe to a 3-digit number. So tell your friends, tell them how fun it is, and we'd love to see you.
Also, if you have topics that you'd like us to go over for these calls that would be beneficial to you, please let us know. Let me know. Happy to plan. We want to make sure that what we're presenting to you is as useful as possible. Tom, maybe you can stay on the phone so we can get those poll questions from you. And then otherwise, everyone, thank you so much for your time.
You got it. Thanks, everyone.